In this video, we are going to take it one step further. We are going to set up autoloading, and we are also going to set up PHPUnit, which is the framework that we'll be using for test. So the first thing I want to do now is to open my command line tool. So I'm using git bash. You can use any command line tool that you like. And I'm going to initialize composer. So I'm going to say composer init. And this is going to ask me a few questions. I'm going to just choose the default. And then I'm going to just skip this and to skip. I'm going to skip all of this. I'm also going to skip the license. Do you want to define your dependencies? No. And we're also going to say no. Do you want to confirm? I'm going to say yes. Would you like the vendor directory added to your .git ignore? I'm going to say yes. And that is it. So if you've not used Composer before, as I've mentioned, we already have a series on Composer, and you can actually watch the videos right there on how to install Composer and how to do basic things with Composer. But other than this and autoloading, we're not going to be using Composer for anything. So just to autoload our PHP classes and also to get PHPUnit, which we are going to be using for tests. That is why we need Composer. Every other thing is going to be raw PHP. Okay, so let's get into the test editor again. And then right here, I have a file called composer.json. Right here, what I want to do is to set up our autoloading standard. So the autoloading standard that we are going to be using is PSR4. If you've never heard of PSR4 before, you can actually do a Google search on the PSR website. So this PSR4 autoloader. So basically the PSR4 specification defines how we should do our autoloading. So because we're going to be using Composer, we don't need to really worry about this. We just need to ensure that we are following what we need to follow in our code, like providing namespaces for our classes, and also to follow all these basic conventions. So you can take your time to read through the page here. It's a very short documentation, and then you'll be familiar with PSR4. Okay, so let's get back again to the test editor. I want to create a new key here, and this key is going to be my autoload. So in my autoload key, I want to specify in an object that I want to use PSR4. So we have to put that in quote and say PSR-4. And then we're going to now specify in another object where is the directory that we want to put our classes and where Composer should load the classes from. So that is going to be the first thing that I want to say is my namespace is going to be up, and then the folder is going to be the SRC directory. So we have our SRC folder. So inside of our SRC folder is where we are going to have all of our classes. Okay, so that's all we need to do for autoloading. So we need to define another one, which is similar to what we've just done, but this is going to be for test. So I'm going to come here and say autoload dev. So that will be autoload -dev. And then we're going to open an object here and then specify the autoloading standard, which is exactly the same thing like we did above, PSR4. Okay, that's PSR-4, a column, and then another object. And then now we're going to specify the folder. So first we specify the namespace. So our test is going to be in a namespace called test. And then we are going to specify the folder. So the folder is going to be in a folder called test in the base of our project directory. So you remember we have SRC here and we have test here. But inside of test, we have nothing right now. So this is all we need to do to specify the autoloading standard that we're using. With this Composer, we'll be able to load all of our classes from the different directories where we're going to put them. So the last thing we want to do before we end this video is to actually install PHPUnit. We need PHPUnit to write our test. So let's install it. Okay, so right here on the browser, I'm going to type in PHPUnit package gist. All right, so from here, I can actually get the command to install PHPUnit. And then let's get back to the test editor. You can see here, before we do that, that PHPUnit is currently in the 8th version, but I want to actually install PHPUnit 7. So let's get back again to the test editor. And right here, I'm going to add a new key. So let's add a key here. And we're going to say require -dev. So we want PHPUnit to be our development dependency because we don't need this in our application. We just need it to write tests to ensure that our application works fine. So this is going to be a dev dependency. And then here we can actually just write it in PHPUnit, then put a slash, and then type in PHPUnit again. And now we can specify the specific version that we want to install. So I want to install version 7. So here I'm going to say I need version 7 of PHPUnit. And this is going to be a development dependency. So you can see here in the require key, we don't have any dependency, which is because we are not using any dependency for our application. So to wrap up this video, we're going to run composer install. So we're going to say composer install. If everything works correctly, it's going to install PHPUnit version 7, and then it's going to create an autoload file for us that we can then use in our application to load files. Now it's installing PHPUnit. All right, so you can see it's installing PHPUnit 7.5.7. Once that's complete, it's going to dump the autoload file. All right, so great. We are able to actually achieve this in a very short amount of time. Let's get back again to the test editor. And then now we want to be inside of our index file. And then here, what we want to do after the street type declaration is to actually require vendor autoload. So we're going to say require once. So we want to make sure that we are referencing this from, and then I'm going to specify the path. So this should be vendor autoload. Okay, so this is the file that Composer uses to autoload based on what we actually defined inside of this file. In the next video, we can now begin to build our application.